Back-to-back NFC North champions, and it feels so damn good. Welcome to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. PrideofDetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Blue Sky. Live right now on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit and on youtube.com/@Pride of Detroit as we come in here to celebrate a second year of Lions dominance in the NFC North. They have swept the division. They have secured their second division crown. I don't know if that's been done in history for them.
Back-to-back,
Jeremy,
never.
you can just get never for the Detroit Lions. Never 15 wins in a season. Never a first the number one seed in the NFL playoffs. Unrequited success so far this season, for the regular season at least. I know there's expectations for the postseason, and I always have to hold myself back on giddy on this, but this feels like, damn. The Lions refused to call this the cherry on top, but this was the perfect end to the regular season and setting them up for a very exciting postseason. Is now the playoffs run through Detroit on the NFC side, home field throughout. And to break it down and what happened last night in Detroit with the roof coming off Ford Field was a man who was there, Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit on Lion.
What a night, man. That one ranks pretty high up with some pretty incredible moments that we've been able to witness here in the past couple of years. The Lions are really stacking some really special moments, games, eras. For the first time ever, I feel extremely spoiled as a Detroit Lions fan, and I'm going to eat that up as long as I can.
Keep eating the cake. Keep eating all of it. Keep eating all of it. I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. And joining us, as always, Ryan Matthews, at Ryan_POD. Ryan, are we excited?
I am excited, Chris.
Got a week
Jeremy.
off.
I mean, that I love. We love that as much as anything. But I feel like the one marker as a fan of all Detroit sports growing up was you knew your team made it when the jersey went on the spirit of Detroit.
Yes.
And the Lions jersey went on the spirit of Detroit. And I know it's happened in years past, but like now it feels like it might be like, you know, a routine winter decoration for the spirit of Detroit. It feels like the Lions have arrived in a way that the Red Wings, you know, and I know it was so many years with the Red Wings, and I know it was so many years with the Pistons and all their Eastern Conference titles and making it all the way there and everything. But like, it feels like the Lions are catching up to like, they're catching up on lost time, Jeremy.
Yeah, we're at a point where the expectations of this team are so high every year going like, and it's not going to stop next year. It's not going to stop the year after that. This team has established themselves as one of the best teams in football. They have the fourth best record in football since 2022, and that includes a 1-6 start in that 2022 season. Dan Campbell said from his opening press conference, he wants this team to be the Steelers, the Packers, like these franchises that have always stuck around. And yes, they're only 4 seasons in. Yes, they don't have a ring to show for it yet, but there is nothing to suggest they haven't arrived at that.
It's just fun to be in the mix. Like, if nothing else, when we start, and we're going to talk a lot in segment 2 about what this season means in totality, because we do have to get to this matchup with the Vikings. But I think when we set out, Jeremy, it's like we just want to see the Lions in the playoffs year in and year out. And maybe there's a couple stumble bum years where it's like, okay, something doesn't break your way and there's some injuries, or you got to deal with some coordinators getting poached. You might take a step back, but I don't think it ever puts. There's always that question, I think, with Lions fans was, could this go back to the old days? And so far, there's no sign it's going to stop anytime soon. It wouldn't have made a difference anyway, really, if they had lost this game. They're still going to the playoffs. They still would have gone to the playoffs, but it felt like an exclamation point. It felt like in a moment where it's like everything could go wrong here. All of the energy, all the momentum, there's Jeremy's favorite word, was behind the Minnesota Vikings. Everyone on national media was like, nobody's talking about the Minnesota Vikings. Let me tell you, all of you were talking about the Minnesota Vikings and all saying the same thing, that nobody's talking about the Minnesota Vikings and nobody's talking about Sam Darnold. And what happened? They stepped into Ford Field with all the swagger in the world, and They ate. You know what? Can I say it? They ate shit. It kind of. They kind of fell on their face. The first half turns into this defensive slugfest where but in the full totality, the Lions kept them out of the end zone, Ryan. 3 trips inside the 10-yard line and 9 points. Or I think I've got that wrong. I've got either way, like 9 points in total for them. They turned the ball over several times on 4th down within the red zone. Missed a field goal at one point. And all night long, Sam Darnold looked lost. Looked absolutely. What's your favorite quote, Ryan? From Sam Darnold, the Jets game?
I mean, the ghosts. They're interesting.
Came back.
But I think that's where we have to start, is with the first performance from the Lions defense that I can say with confidence made me feel like this team has a legit shot at the Super Bowl. Yep. Like that expectation started to wane a little bit. And especially after the Buffalo Bills game, it felt like, okay, the Lions are going to have to be perfect. Jeremy, the offense was not perfect in the first half, but when the Vikings run 14 plays in the red zone and only one of them is deemed successful, and that Minnesota's 7.1 red zone success rate was the worst by any team in a game in the last 5 seasons, that's not the defense that we had seen the past 5-6 weeks.
No. And you know, you might think to yourself, well, why'd they let them get in the red zone that many times, 4 times? That the offense put them in that position several times.
Yeah, they gave them short field quite a few times.
To me, this game was chicken soup for the soul. Like, I'm with you. I was not feeling great going into this game. I was not feeling great going into the playoffs. You look at some of the defensive numbers over the past, really not just that Bills game, really the past 4 or 5 games going back to that first Bears game. And I mean, it's not hard to see that the DVOA charts, the EPA, like, ever since Alex Anzalone went out, things were trending in a very concerning way, in which the reason why we all went into this game saying, hey, the defense just needs to get a stop or 2, and that's going to give this team a chance. It almost was the exact inverse, where it's like the defense is getting all the stops. You just need the offense to score once or twice, and they're going to win. And to have that confidence boost as a fan is everything. There's a reason why the Lions are Super Bowl favorites again, because that is how they looked for the majority of this season when they were healthy, or even when they were only mildly hurt. Like, they were still playing at this kind of level after Aiden Hutchinson's injury. Like, the next 3 or 4 weeks, they were playing at this sort of level, which is why for 2 months of this season, they were the number 1 team in terms of power rankings. They were the favorite in the Super Bowl. And now, I know it's only a 1-game sample size, and you never want to overreact to one game, especially in a game where Sam Darnold did not play his best. You know, the Vikings shot themselves in the foot several times by either not going for it or going for it and missing a wide open receiver. But at the same time, the stats are the stats. Sam Darnold had 166 passing yards in this game, the lowest of his career. Or his Vikings career, let's be honest.
His Vikings career.
4.0 yards per attempt. I mean, and even though this game was close deep into the third quarter, the Lions made it clear that they are the much better team in the fourth, because they just absolutely dominated that quarter from front to back. And I am almost as confident in this team as I have been at any point in the season, because the return of Alex Anzalone was everything that we build it, and Amik Robertson is a freaking dog, man.
Yeah. So what the Lions, you mentioned the offense, and we'll get to that eventually, but 2 of 4 on 4th down efficiency. You lose the turnover battle 2 turnovers from the Lions, none from the Vikings. And yet that's still what you're able to do. We had talked a lot about how Alex Anzalone, his return was probably what the linebackers needed to get in place, to get in position. And he spent a lot of time draped over TJ Hawkinson, which is not only the right place to put him. Was he handsy a little bit? Sure. But I think you kind of had to be to really send the message. Did he get penalized a few times for it? Sure, whatever. But also it denied an over-the-middle element that Darnold's needed. And the blitz was working, and the man worked. And, Amik Robertson, I'd have to see where he was on the field, but he definitely felt like they made a lot on the broadcast about how he and Justin Jefferson played in high school. He was all over him.
He was
all
following
over
him. He was shadowing him. That is something that the Lions don't ever do. And to do that with a guy that has been playing nickel for you all season, that is ballsy and a huge ask of someone who, you know, he signed to the team kind of as a backup, right? And suddenly in week 18, he is shadowing the best receiver in football and locking him up.
3 receptions allowed for Justin Jefferson out of 9 targets, only 54 yards. And let's do our favorite game. There was a 31-yard long.
Take it away.
So you can do the math. Take it away and do the math on what remains. That is incredibly quiet for a talent like Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison, nothing. You guys, everyone listening, you had the same amount of receiving yards as Jordan Addison did. He was taken out of the game completely.
I gained it on one fewer catch too.
I do want to ask this though, because we're spending a lot, and I feel like I know where you guys are going, but there's the big question in my head, because I saw the matchup against the Vikings. I'm like, this is working out really well. And like, you've got Sam Darnold dead to rights. You've got Jefferson locked down. The man coverage works. The blitz works. Is this just a really good matchup against the Vikings? Or I think I hear where you guys are leaning. This is something you can take away from this and, you know, move forward. Is the return of Anzalone that big that it's like you've got confidence in this defense in the playoffs at this level?
I have a lot more confidence than I had in Ben Neiman. No offense to Ben Neiman. And I have a lot more confidence with Alex Anzalone. When you have Alex Anzalone, and it's not just him, you have Jack Campbell. And I think you have both of those guys. And it just makes Jack's life so much easier, right? Like, I think we tend to forget sometimes, and we'll get to it with the offense, and we'll get to it with the emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs this season. But
good Lord,
it's almost like, while Gibbs is awesome, yes, you think back to when he had Monty, and it's like those two as a pair are just absolutely dynamite, lights out. Yep. It's the same thing with Anzalone and Jack Campbell.
I agree.
Campbell, I think he benefits so much from having him next to him that Jeremy, like I do feel a lot better. Am I worried that the 33 pressures might be a little bit of an aberration? Potentially, maybe. I mean, they schemed up a lot of stuff. We'll see how it goes from here, if they're even going to blitz that much anymore. But like, I have a great reason to believe that bringing Alex Anzalone back, and then you have Jack Campbell, and you have a dynamite second level of your defense.
I think back to Alex Anzalone's first year here, where everyone hated him and thought he was a terrible linebacker. And when you talk to Alex Anzalone about that first year, he kept saying the same thing, which is, I felt like I had to do everything. I felt like I mean, he wasn't throwing his teammates under the bus, but basically what he was saying is, I don't trust the guy next to me. He doesn't trust me. I feel like I have to go beyond what my duty is. And that makes you look bad, because that's not how the defense works. Everyone has to be doing their own job, and Alex Anzalone was overreaching. So when Alex Anzalone is out, and Jack Campbell has guys that were in the building for a week before they're out there what do you think Jack Campbell is going through? The exact same thing, where now he's trying to overreach. And when you put those two guys together, guys that played basically this entire season together, all that goes away. I want to read what Dan Campbell said about the return of Alex Anzalone, because I think it's very important. I think it's very salient in terms of just how big of a difference it makes. But he says, quote, "It was huge. Look, I've said this before. He's really our quarterback on defense. He's our quarterback on defense, and you know he just brings, there's this level of confidence he brings, a lot of energy. He can calm the storms. To have him back, you know, I thought it was going to take a minute for him to work himself back in, and it didn't take long at all. He was back to what he was doing before he got injured, and I thought it was outstanding. So to have him back, it was huge. He calms everything down. He's the quarterback. And you see it. You see it the way he communicates with everybody. I saw a specific instance that, you know, one of the things that the Lions struggled with without him there was defenders on the same level getting caught into each other, running apart. And I see him yelling like, back up. We can't be on the same level.
Well, that was the problem in the 49ers game.
Yes,
that was the problem in the 49ers game, was linebackers all biting on the play action. Like, I think Anzalone being that field general there makes a huge difference. And then you get step-up performances from Amik Robertson. And, like, we haven't even sung the praises yet of Al-Qadim Muhammad, who had yet another, great game. I think he had a sack and a tackle for loss in this game as well. Darius Smith really continuing to, feast. And like, look, they got and got to hit Sam Darnold. They've made Sam Darnold look, and there was really only one play that I felt was like really busted in this game, and that was the Cam Akers 58-yard run. Yeah. But outside of that, they played what they've always wanted to do, which is to contain you, make you one-dimensional, and don't let you get any big stuff on them. And I thought it worked for most of the night.
Yeah. I mean, I thought one of the best players for the Vikings all night long was the play clock.
The play.
Oh, don't get me riled up.
Here we go,
Ryan. I'm low on sleep right now, man. I'm very agitated. That's not a word.
But we want NBA shot clock. We know.
The one other defender that wasn't mentioned, and speaking of guys in 2021 or from 2021, right? You have Alex Anzalone who comes in, and everybody's like, man, this guy's just a linebacker who you can find anywhere in the league. Levi Onwuzurike. 9 pressures in this game and was just like one of the guys that I routinely saw making a difference on the defensive line. And this is a guy who last training camp, we said, this is it for him. Either it works or it doesn't work.
This was absolutely the game where everyone, like, they knew coming in, we have to step up. This is our big moment. This is the prove it time. Look, man, too many other times in Lions history, we can look at a defense here and like, they're clearly not up to the moment. They were up to the moment full way through. We have to see what happens with Terry and Arnold and his injury, which is tough. But, I think nothing but, 2 game balls given out to the defense, and I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked about the defense so much, and I don't even think we've uttered the man's name, Aaron Glenn. You ask if this game is translatable to another opponent when you get to the playoffs, when you get to maybe some of these elite quarterbacks. And I don't know if the answer is yes or no, but I do know that you should have a lot of confidence in Aaron Glenn coming up with a game plan that works, because that's the other piece of this puzzle. Like, obviously it takes the players to go out there and do your bidding, so to speak. But I thought this was an incredibly audacious game plan, because if you look at some of the statistics in this game and why I was so concerned about this game, Sam Darnold this year has been excellent against man coverage. He's been excellent against the blitz. And what did Aaron Glenn decide to do?
He decided to play man coverage on 66.7%
up
of
to
his
11.
Yeah. The second highest mark by a defense in a game this season.
And that's because he saw something that a lot of people who are just kind of looking at these stat sheets don't see, which is Sam Darnold holds the ball very long. He can get a little jittery. He's never played in a game this big, so his idea was maybe he's good at this. Maybe this big stage is where he's going to crumble. And he bet on that, and it absolutely worked. And again, I think I'm throwing Anzalone back into this conversation too, because like when it comes to all those pass rushing packages, and people don't really, I think, realize when you blitz, it's not just like, let me just run straight. Like, there are rushing lanes that have to be exact and detailed. And all of that looked much more on point with Alex Anzalone in the matchup. And I know, he's not a premier pass rusher, but he was involved in a lot of those blitz packages, and everything looked cleaner with him in there. And it caused Sam Darnold to lose his mind, man. I know he's inaccurate in this game, but a lot of times it felt like it was forced inaccuracy.
All right, we've got 20 minutes in on the defense. Let's see if we can fit in a little bit of time for the offense.
I feel like it's fair, though.
Yeah, it is. Fair.
That's the takeaway from this game, is that the Lions kept the Vikings out of the end zone all night long.
For 60 minutes.
Despite them showing up on their doorstep a few times.
Right. If they had lost that game and the defense played like that, I'd have almost just as much confidence in the team in the playoffs.
And I think there's been a lot of bend don't break this year from the Lions when they need the defense in big moments. And I think we've just always wanted to see them put together a full 60 minutes, and they did.
Yeah.
They did. And that's the part that I think is the real revelation out of all of this. There's a lot of talk about when you peak in an NFL season, and I think there was a lot of talk of have the Lions peaked too early. I think they had a lull, and then they're starting to climb back to another peak. and it might be at just the right time. And one of those that might be doing that is Jahmyr Gibbs having 4 damn touchdowns. I need to go through some of this. Averaging 6 yards on the ground, and he had that long of 47. I targeted 5 times, picked up all of them, receiving. I'm going to leave Jeremy alone on this because I just feel like if I just keep jumping up and down on top of this, on the running back and where he's drafted, it's going to cause a fight somewhere. But I don't think there's been any more player more dynamic for this. And we've talked about this, Ryan, about like what is Jahmyr Gibbs when suddenly he's being asked to carry a much heavier workload, when he's being asked to play a lot, like what was it? How many 45 snaps in a game with no David Montgomery to back him up. And 23 of those on run, 15 on passing. And he's the most in a night where Jared Goff was really having, and I don't even know how much of those issues I really want to put, like Jared Goff's not greatest night, an arm punt and a tip pass. And yet there's Gibbs here doing basically everything by himself. I know Craig Reynolds had 8 carries in this game, but Gibbs was the only weapon they had on the ground, put him in every position they needed to. And just the acceleration and the cut against a very good Minnesota Vikings defense that knew exactly what the Lions were going to do. And they did stopper it up for about a half. But then the hinges started to come off, and you started to wear them down. And Gibbs started to go nuts.
Yeah, it's complimentary football for me. And there was a number that stood out to me with Gibbs' day, and it was that the majority of his production came from when the Lions were under center. He had 17 carries for 129 yards, including all 4 of his explosive runs in the game. And that's complimentary football because where's Jared Goff is best? Under center, play action, doing all that stuff. So it's, hey, are we getting ready for Gibbs to break one to the outside and get 40 yards? Or is Jared Goff going to run play action and then we have to worry about J-Mo catching a crosser and that going for 40 yards, right? And Gibbs, you can't say enough about just the unique talent that he is. And no play, Jeremy, stands out more to me than the lick that he took from Van Ginkel. It was not late in the game. That was the very beginning of the second quarter. And that guy went on to score 3 more touchdowns in the game.
Van Ginkel in general was a threat for the entire offense. Like every time you throw that way, but like that hit he laid on Gibbs was like, I would have not have faulted him if it's like, man, he might have to take a step back for the rest of the game, but he didn't. As you said, 3 more damn touchdowns.
Including
Lions
that last
touchdown
one,
leader,
which was a very physical, like he got stopped at the 2-yard line and just kept his feet up and got pushed over. I mean, again, like that is a David Montgomery touchdown. That's not a Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown, but he also had Jahmyr Gibbs touchdowns because one of those, like that 15-yard run looked almost identical to the one he did against the Bucs. It was literally the same corner of the end zone. It was just missing a stiff arm of Harrison Smith at the end. Like that's all that was missing. And I just, the explosion, man. And one of those runs too, he just like ran right off the tail of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He notices those smallest of lanes in a way that a lot of running backs like him that have a lot of speed don't bother to use, right? They think they're, I mean, not to throw dirt on the running back that preceded him, but that is not something DeAndre Swift was good at. He leaned a little bit too much on his speed. He leaned a little bit too much on, I'm just going to beat this guy to the outside. Gibbs has great vision, and he's not afraid to lower his shoulder. Now, I think Swift has finally learned he can lower his shoulder a bit too, but the vision part is what continues to impress me from Gibbs. And using that, I mean, that combination of great vision and explosiveness is a extremely dangerous combination, and the Vikings found out the hard way in the second half.
So I think that the Lions, if anything, you had to deal with the blitz all night long from the Minnesota Vikings. I've had some people ask me on the post-game stream about how the offensive line did. on this. I think, given the situation where you're asking him to pick up multiple receivers the way they did, it was fine. I also just don't think that's going to be like this could be the worst game Jared Goff's played since probably the Texans game. And I don't think that's going to happen again, really. Like, because of the two interceptions, I believe he had like what? It was a tip pass and then like an arm punt. Right. And again, that arm punt, we've seen that before. You feel like you're not getting anything offensively going. Let's just throw it deep and see what happens. And
I don't think that was the idea. I mean, that was first down. No. You don't want to arm punt on first down. I think that was like J-Mo kind of gave up on that play. I don't really understand why. I don't love the play call. I don't love Goff letting that ball go anyways because he wasn't open, but J-Mo certainly didn't help by just kind of stopping. I thought Goff was actually just fine in this game. I wouldn't say he was spectacular. I wouldn't say he was terrible. He almost had another pick six very late in the game.
Ginkel nearly picked up the pick six. Yeah.
Which
that
again, like,
would have changed the whole complexity of the game.
But like in the way that Dan Campbell excused all the interceptions against the Texans, I almost feel like it was very similar in that aspect. Like you have the tipped pass. If that one would have gotten picked off by Ginkel, it's like that's not really Goff's fault. It's the play call. Like right to like why are you throwing that to Van Ginkel's side? But like here's the thing.
We've talked about it all year. Death to boundary screens. Quick hitters with Jared Goff. I hate it. It's dumb. It's stupid.
It's the one piece of Ben Johnson's playbook he keeps coming back to, and I wish he wouldn't.
But the other interception too, Jeremy. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily a screenplay, but it's something where you're trying to. I mean, if he gets that ball just up, Craig Reynolds has 20 yards to run, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of blame to be had there. I guess my point being
intentional grounding.
My point,
in the end zone. You got away with one there.
He definitely got away with one. But here's my point. He throws the second interception on the very first play of the second half, the very first offensive play of that second half. The rest of the way, he goes 14 for 15 for 116 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, it was big time. When they needed him, he was big time. Yeah.
Yeah. And he also made some very gutsy throws in this game where the Lions love to run play action, and one of the scariest parts of running play action, particularly against this defense, is that your back is turned. And so when you turn back around, you have to read everything that's in front of you. You don't necessarily know what's going to be coming at you. You have to trust your pre-snap read, and then you have to make a very quick decision. And there were a couple times where he knew what was in front of him. He knew he was going to take a big hit, and he got rid of the ball in a way that was typically very accurate.
Dude, there was a play that he held on to the ball an extra beat so J-Mo could get a little extra separation and just down play. Yep. And I mean, you want to talk about trust between two guys. I know the miscommunication on the quote unquote arm punt, but like a play like that in a gotta have it situation, Jameson Williams' hands are the ones that secure that ball and bring it in, right? And I don't think we were there with J-Mo before the season. I know we're going to talk about big season accomplishments and things like that, but 1,000 yards for Jameson Williams this year.
And it's in a completely different way of where I think any of us ever anticipated how they would use Jameson Williams. I was going back to that log from the first Tampa Bay Buccaneers game when people were asking about potentially meeting them again in the playoffs. And one of the things the Lions were not doing was using J-Mo like this, like using him in shorter situations over the middle of the field, end around. Like they've stopped trying to use him on just the deep ball threat and are using him as a full complete package like they use someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he I don't think he can do kind of the same physical stuff St. Brown can do, but he's definitely got the speed on his hands to make him that much more of a threat in different ways, in a complementary way. And that's ultimately still the part that has made this Lions offense sing, is how everyone kind of fits together like a jigsaw puzzle or one of those Connect Lego machines. Just everything is working in these pieces. Getting Khalif Raymond back was fantastic as well. Like, we want to talk about the other guy who made his return last night.
Plus, I mean, listen, Dan Campbell brings it all together with the aggressiveness. It pays off again. Like, it's worth repeating every time it pays off, because you know there are going to be a million talking heads talking about it the first time it makes a mistake.
To that point, both times they converted a fourth down. They failed twice, but they converted 2 fourth downs. What happens? It happened on the play of the fourth down, and then on the other one, the next play after the fourth down. What happens, Jeremy? Touchdowns. It was a Texas route. It was a Texas route immediately after picking up the first down off of fourth, and then I believe it was a Gibbs touchdown on fourth down in the late in the game.
The Texas route was on fourth down, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I got those mixed up. Either way.
But yeah, I mean, listen, and the other, so we all know the other fourth down that they didn't pick up, and if you want to, we can argue whether they should have run that play or not. Should have, quarterback snuck. And then I think the fourth down conversion was just at the very tail end of the game where it's 4th and 5 with 30 seconds left, and they ran the ball.
So that doesn't they were 3 for 4.
Yeah.
Ostensibly.
And even on the one where they should have QB snuck, like they had the guy there.
Yep. It
just got tipped at the worst possible time. Right. Like that play probably could have worked, but the Vikings made a great play on it.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. In a game in which easy. Right.
Is it KOC? It's not so easy to go for it on fourth down.
That's what I was going to say, right? Because Kevin O'Connell made a very, I think, controversial decision to kick a field goal, a 51-yard field goal, and I think at that point it was an 8-point game. They line up for the 51-yard field goal. He misses it. The Lions immediately score, and that 8-point game is suddenly a 15-point game in the fourth quarter, and the game is almost over at that point.
And something I noticed, Ryan, and it's the last piece I have on this. The Lions were all business last night. Like, we usually see them, there's once again all the talk about Ben Johnson, the depth of trick plays, and is it even sporting? Is it even fair to be running the trick? All business last night. All damn business. And that's still what it looked like at the end. That you once again go out there and put 30 points on a Brian Flores defense.
The one drive, I want to say, where it reminded me of old business. And I know Dan Campbell, when he came in the locker room, Jeremy, that was one of the things that stood out to you, was like, oh, you guys remembered who you were tonight, right? You guys remembered that
paraphrased.
You played this way. Like, you remembered that you can play this way.
Yeah.
It was that drive with the Texas route for the touchdown. It was 13 plays, 70 yards, 7.5 minutes, and there was no David Montgomery, right? It was Jahmyr Gibbs is a part of this. I mean, there are so many. That drive, right? It seemed like the Lions were walking backwards. It was false start penalties, and it was 2nd and 19. And then it's a big play to Sam Laporta, somebody we didn't really talk about a lot, who had another great game. And then a ton of gotta-have-it situations. Sam Laporta's making a contested catch.
Yeah, 7 for 7 on targets.
It was 31-9. And that was my big takeaway, is that this game didn't feel like it was 31-9. And then the fourth quarter happened, and it removed any and all doubt of who I thought was the best team in the NFC. It removed any and all doubt about who deserves Coach of the Year. It's Dan Campbell. It's not. I don't know how you can watch that game last night and say one coach didn't outcoach the other coach. The only way I can see those mental gymnastics happening, Jeremy, is people online saying that Dan Campbell is a coordinator merchant, which I love. I love that we're just throwing things in front of merchant, and we're going that way with everything.
People with the word merchant,
which is great. And because I thought that maybe Kevin O'Connell might have been a Brian Flores merchant, but what's going on? I'm just saying that the Lions are the best team in the NFC. Dan Campbell's without a doubt the Coach of the Year. And if Saquon frickin' Barkley doesn't have an incredible once-in-a-lifetime season, I think Jahmyr Gibbs definitely deserves consideration to be Offensive Player of the Year.
By the way, some news here as we look towards the playoffs and about to take a break to talk about those playoffs and much more. Eagles' Jalen Hurts, is the quarterback for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, per Schefter, is still in concussion protocol. So something to keep an eye out while we're talking about Saquon Barkley. Something to keep an eye out is Righteous Felon Craft Jerky and Meat Sticks. We got all the meat products over here. It's 2025, and your resolution is meat. That's right, meat. You thought you were going to, fix up your life. You thought you were going to read more. No, it's meat. Meat is in your life, and we're going to give you all the meat from the Pride of Detroit POD cast because we love Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein. Each stick has 8 grams. The Lions had a lot of meat last night, Jeremy. A lot of meat.
All the meats.
All the meats. Christian Mahogany's eating his meat. That man loves Dune 2. I love him. I love what he does. He's just going nuts. He didn't play much in this game. It doesn't matter. He still looks excellent out there. I love the guy. I love that he posts Dune. He knows who Fade Rotha is. He's got points in my book. Is there a Fade Rotha flavor of Righteous Felon craft jerky? I don't know. Maybe there should be. The spice must flow. The spice on your spicy craft jerky. Because Righteous Felon uses locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef, superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. Like Arrakis Heat. Not a real flavor, but it could be. Very soon. Righteous Felon, if you're listening, get in on this. POD15 at checkout will get you 15% off your order. Any order, no matter how big, no matter how small. And you're going to want this. This stuff we like. RighteousFelon.com, POD15 at checkout. Now it's time to look back on the season that was for the Detroit Lions. We'll be right back on the Pride of Detroit PODcast. All right. Hi.
Really quick before I get into alerts.
Have fun.
At the mention of Christian Mahogany, it's worth pointing out that yes, indeed, Christian Mahogany did stop by on our Twitch stream for the Madden Sim over the weekend, or I guess yesterday morning. I wasn't sure if it was him. I kind of didn't believe at first it was him, because why would Christian Mahogany be watching our Twitch channel? But then I thought about it, I'm like, who's the person that's going to impersonate Christian Mahogany? And I got Eric, because I was going to go in the locker room after the game, but then they brought 4 people up to the podium, which is not typical. So I didn't get a chance to go in the locker room, but Eric did confirm that Christian Mahogany was the real Christian Mahogany, and I stopped by Christian Mahogany's Twitch stream this morning because he was streaming, and ultimately confirmed that it was indeed him. So shout out Christian Mahogany. He was playing some Madden today.
Hell yeah.
Ultimate, what is it? Ultimate Team?
Ultimate Team. Mutt.
That's right. Some Mutt.
Yeah.
It doesn't look fun, to be quite honest.
We
just
didn't
like
get
you
one
have
more.
all pros at every level, and you're throwing these 70-yard touchdown passes every play. That's not real football.
Someone I think it was Shutdown Fullcast made a great point that when people say video game numbers, it's usually by people who don't play video games, whereas video game numbers is just you screwing around and like running 50 yards back with the ball and then trying to still score a touchdown.
Yeah. Like my only sense, Chris, of what you're saying when it comes to video game numbers is thinking about those memes of like when a team loses a big game and then they have the meme of them like and you can't see them, but they're just like breathing heavily into the mic and they're up like 300, like a Vikings fan would be up 368 to nothing against the Lions and like throwing another 90-yard pass to Justin Jefferson to blow off steam. Like those are like video game numbers.
Yeah. Like nothing that could actually happen.
Yeah.
Sorry to make a quick hard left turn. Maybe this is something we do in the next thing. I do have to shout out Chim Richels on Twitter, who I know comments with us a lot.
Sure.
He did the math. The last 3 seasons, the Detroit Lions are 14-1 in all blues, 14-2 in all whites. They're 10-13 in every other combo combined. And this season, I believe it's 2-1 in the black jerseys.
That's right. I'm refusing.
So we're never getting blue. We're never getting blue and silver pants again, is what I'm saying.
This is dumb. Causation does not equal correlation, or correlation does not equal causation. They stopped wearing those things.
Things cannot be explained by science.
No, but I love the white tops, blue pants. We're getting rid of that forever? That's what we're doing. We're just going monochromatic every week. That's boring. Break through these shackles of, these jerseys are cursed. I thought we were past that. I thought we were past this team being cursed by things.
Well, we exercised one curse on the black jerseys, and now we just replace it with another.
I like how they lost one game in the black jerseys. Everybody's like, they're cursed.
No, we got to wear the blueberries.
The cursed.
I was really hoping. I know that's their home jersey, but I was really hoping the Vikings would wear the icy whites.
They needed to.
White
They
hats
failed.
versus black hats.
That's
failed.
why they lost.
That's why they lost.
Dude, they
Y'all
lost,
are not afraid of Lambeau anymore. You're not afraid of Dallas. You're not afraid of all these other cursed places.
I felt bad a little bit for Arif because he was so confident with like the Vikings are going to do this thing, and now they've taken one loss, and it's exactly what we thought would happen if the Lions lost. Like it is suddenly everything's crashing down again.
I don't think he feels that way. I read his article today, and
okay.
It just
maybe you got a different vibe.
The vibes are dedefinitely low. I mean, they should be because they got gut punched and they got humbled. But
and dude, I don't know if they're gonna beat the Rams. That's such a tough first round. Like I didn't want that for the Lions.
Is it though? Like the Rams,
I was furious at the early game results, and so was everybody on the Lions beat because like no one on the Lions beat wants to travel. West Coast games are the worst, and then when it came out that it was a Monday night game, that makes travel even worse because let's say the Lions traveled to Monday night. Let's just say in this theoretical, they lose that game. Like locker clean out is at like 4 p.m. on Tuesday, and every one of the Lions beat has to somehow make their way from LA to Detroit after a game that finishes at 8-9 o'clock Eastern or Western Pacific. Get all the way back. Like I know no one cares about logistics, but like
yeah,
I don't know. I just think back to my trip to San Francisco, and I lost my entire Monday on that trip back. Like the entire Monday.
You don't. I go back home all the time to through Detroit Airport from LA. Like it's just it's 4 hours in a can.
Yeah.
Like terrible. You're not, or 5 hours in a can, excuse me. Like it takes up the entire day.
It's
You're
like 8. It's
time
really
loss
more like
and everything, jet lag. It takes everything. I'll say a couple things. Number one, I don't know if the Rams are that easy of a win as people think. Like I understand the Bills games front and center is everyone mind. They've been so hot cold in some of these other games though. That said, it would feel very cursed for the Vikings, whose only 2 losses in the first 17 weeks of the season went Lions-Vikings to then end their season with 2 losses. Lions, Rams, and then to end their season with 2 losses, Lions-Rams.
It's the only other team they've lost to this year.
History's a flat circle.
I don't think it's any coincidence, though. You have 2 quarterbacks who are extremely good against the blitz. You have Matthew Stafford, you have Jared Goff. 2 guys who are really good against the blitz. And that was the thing that maybe most surprised me about last night with Flores was like, oh, he's still just going to blitz Goff.
That's who he is.
He's got one mode, man.
And it's like, dude, you are like the smoke and mirrors guy. You are the art of deception, and you're not going to lean into that. You're not going to do some more zone stuff. Like,
did you know the Lions trying to fight? That was the one thing I noticed, that the Lions offense was trying to fight back with smoke and mirrors too. Like there were some points and it got damn close to 0 in a couple times where like the Lions would start shifting guys a lot to keep throwing off Flores' own shifts.
Yeah. It did
nobody
feel at times
wanted
like,
to sit still.
Yeah. Like we're going to audible and then we're going to audible, you're audible. Well, then we'll audible, you're audible.
And the Vikings didn't care because the play clock didn't matter to them. So
listen, I think Vikings, it's bad both ways because I'm sure there's a lot of Vikings fans today who are bitching nonstop about holding.
Dude,
they are.
Dude.
Justin Jefferson's complaining about it, and
everything under the umbrella. TJ Hawkinson flopping and like looking for calls all the time, and like for a guy who couldn't wait to play in games that mattered, that's the way you're gonna play.
Right.
Yikes.
And let's be clear, like pass interference, all that stuff. That's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
When a clock hits 0, that is not subjective. That is objective. No. And I know the NFL has this unwritten rule where it's like you get a half second leeway because it takes a second for the back judge to look up, and it's just like, no, it doesn't. Shut up. When you see when it's 0,
we need a buzzer. We do need a buzzer.
Shut up. There is nothing. I'm so glad that the announcers got into it, and that was it Collinsworth is like, I know, Mike, you don't like this, huh? And Jerry's like, I don't like it. But maybe we'll have this discussion
so
with our rule guy.
To be calling out Tirico for being a Lions fan.
No, that's not what he's doing. He's saying Tirico hates that there is this wiggle room in a play clock that
okay,
I
see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It happened like 4 times in that game.
It was
and
egregious.
They caught it once, maybe twice.
Including the Cam Akers run.
Yeah,
the Cam Akers one was after it was. I
think it was a Cam. There was 2 big plays because the other one was Justin Jefferson's big play on a 3rd and 10, and I think that's the one where Anzalone like jumped up. And he's like,
he jumped up.
Yeah, it's like no.
Anzalone had time to jump up and make a scene about it before the back judge could be like, what?
No, I guess we'll go on our lunch break now.
I pray that someone at least just proposes a rule next year. Like, I just want someone else to be as frustrated about this that I am inside the league. I'm glad that Mike Tirico thinks the rule's a joke. It is a joke. I just need someone inside the NFL to verify my own feelings. And if it doesn't get passed, I don't care. Just someone say, hey, this is
bring it up.
Freaking stupid. Can we fix this? And if the owners are like, no, we're old, we don't like change, fine, whatever.
So just have it happen to the Chiefs.
So
it'll all get fixed.
Can a couple things happened in the early games. I know you mentioned the frustration watching some of that stuff, Jeremy.
Yep.
Boy,
except for the Packers.
I mean, listen, man, fuck the Packers is lifetime. I'm going to give the Bears that one. Like, wow. That locked them into the Eagles. And again, like I guess Jalen Hurts is hurt now, but I mean, you've lost Christian Watson now. Jordan Love is going to be playing hurt.
I don't think he's that hurt.
No,
I think he just hurt his funny bone.
Still, what a game for the Bears! Like in a game where I think I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how the Packers lost that. Besides, very carefully.
Right, because the Bears tried to hand it to him at the very end. DJ Moore fumbled when they were just putting the game away. And then the Packers take the lead with, 50 seconds left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to
down the field and somehow hit a winning field. A Bears kicker hitting a winning field goal?
Right, which just underlines the point that the Packers were extremely close to going 0-6 in the division because the only other game that they won was against the Bears, in which the Bears missed a last-second field goal because it got blocked.
Can we talk about the Schefter news that Alien Vivid are putting here?
I would love to.
That the Bears have sought permission to interview Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy and are awaiting a response from Dallas. My God, please let this happen.
Well, did you see who else they apparently set out to interview as well, Ryan? It was from Rap Sheet a little bit earlier. Mike Kafka from the Giants.
Oh, I remember Mike Kafka.
Yeah, he was a big candidate when he was the Eagles OC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Giants OC?
I feel bad for the Jaguars today.
I don't. They hired Urban Meyer. They deserve everything they get.
Trent Baalke is a Grima Worm.
Nice.
No, come on.
You can say the same thing about Patricia.
Nope. No, I can't.
Patricia
never coached Ohio State.
I like Ryan Day, the Jaguars Ryan Day guy. Like they have a pool in their stadium. They should have fun, and instead you've got fucking Grima Wormtongue as your general manager who somehow survives purges nonstop. I don't.
Hold on, we moved off McCarthy way too quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go back to that just for a second because
we veered completely away, which I was going to talk about the NFC South, but yeah, let's talk about McCarthy.
Just because all I can think about is Chicago Bears fans who for the past 3 months have been like Ben Johnson. The come down of landing Mike McCarthy would be incredible.
It's the Nathan Fielder meme.
Well, it's you know what the through line is between me talking about the Jags to the Bears, because the same thing happened. Because why the fuck have the Bears held on to Ryan Poles?
He had that one trade down that worked really well.
The one that fell in his lap.
This is a terrible offensive line.
Like, all you had to be was with a pulse to get that trade offer from the Carolina Panthers. Like, you had to have the wherewithal to not accidentally hit decline on that trade. But the Bears also requested to interview Flores.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think they're also interviewing Arthur Smith too.
please God, hire Arthur Smith to be your head coach. Arthur Smith or Mike McCarthy, like, please, either or. Mike McCarthy or Arthur Smith.
To be clear, like, I do actually appreciate them. Like, let's interview everybody, right? Let's overturn every stone. That makes sense. But it is also fun to just fantasize that the worst of these options is the one they end up going with.
Well, it's the curse of availability, right? Like, just
Right.
like last year,
Yeah.
how long are you going to wait around? Is Virginia McCaskey going to wait around, simmering at 102, waiting for the Lions to bow out of the playoffs?
That's
Tinfoil hat?
the benefit of making a deep Super Bowl run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How nice is it to be a person who apparently has all of the you're getting all the admiration, you're getting all the love, you're getting all the interest, but then to see those people turn around and spray the infield and want to interview everybody. Oh man, this doesn't all of a sudden seem like I'm
Oh,
the most important person.
Well, again, like the big thing here is, again, it's not
that's a lot of ego to think.
I'm not trying to say it's egotistic. I'm trying to say if I think, and if I'm Ben Johnson, I've always prioritized it being the right fit at the right time in the right place.
Sure.
I'm just saying that maybe like, oh, well, like if you don't think I'm that great, like if you think that I'm only great enough that you're going to interview Mike McCarthy and Arthur Smith and Brian Flores.
No, I
I
would
also
not think of it that way.
I think the bigger thing, again, it's like you held on to Ryan Poles. You've held on to a GM that, like, I don't know. Do you want to work for Ryan Poles? Is that someone who's like a GM you really want to work with? It's not going to be like an Agnew type or something. Like it's going to be a complete unknown person who's been there a while, who's already entrenched, who clearly has the power over you in that regard. Like, is that what you want for your landing spot? We do, speaking of this, have a quick impromptu list cast. I know Jeremy's on a shot clock today. What jobs scare you the most that Ben Johnson would take? I think scare's a tough one because, like, scare, I think for most of us would mean like he stays in the division. I guess I guess if I can twist this a little bit, Robo, where would he be most effective? What job would he be most effective at? What would be his best fit?
Offensive coordinator to the Detroit Lions.
I'm assuming he gets a head coach in one of these offerings, which, by the way, we have like only 5 coach openings right now.
Right. Depending.
I
on
still
what
think the Raiders'
Cowboys are
job
doing.
might open up. Yeah, and depending on what the Cowboys are doing.
I mean, listen, I think most people have latched onto the opinion that just in terms of head coach and roster, Jacksonville makes the most sense. But then with the news of Balky, it's like, I don't know.
Well, can we level the playing field? Can we just take GM considerations out of it? Like, if we had our way, he gets everything he wants, the best job. So number 1 would be Jacksonville. Because of Trevor Lawrence, because of ETN, because of Brian Thomas Jr., because it seems the most put together and the one that just needs the most help schematically to be good. And, of course...
Plus taxes, baby.
Yeah. He likes Florida.
I mean, but it's Jacksonville. It's like one of the worst parts of Florida.
No, it's not. It's not the Panhandle.
It's pretty close, isn't it?
No, it's on the Atlantic coast. It's not the Panhandle. It's
The
like on your way
Panhandle's
between
on the Atlantic
Savannah
coast.
and Orlando. Like I've been through Jacksonville. I know where it's at.
It's still pretty gross.
But
But it is Florida. I mean, there's not a lot of great places in Florida. Sorry if my brother-in-law's watching.
I would say after. Oh, yeah, go on, Ryan.
New York Giants.
But it's not open.
Is it not going to be open?
No, they went out and said they're keeping Dable and Shane this morning.
And the Browns are keeping Stefanski?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In spite of apparently canning like a bunch of other coordinators, including what's his name?
Well, what about New England? I mean, unless we just assume that like that's just Vrabel's job.
I think I'm assuming it's Vrabel's, but let's assume it is open. Like,
Because they requested an interview, right?
Yeah.
He would definitely do well with Drake May. I guess the question is like, what else is there on that roster?
They have the 4th overall pick.
That's true. I think it needs more work than just a 4th overall pick to really fix that up at this point.
Who's the quarterback that played yesterday?
Joe Milton.
Milton. You got a quarterback controversy on your hands.
Oh my gosh, I love Robert Kraft saying we might have 2 quarterbacks. It's like, okay, guy.
Okay.
All I know is you should absolutely judge young quarterbacks based on Week 18 performances against backups. That is how you should manage a team.
Four Verts basically said this is basically preseason Week 4 now.
It was very much bad football all around.
It was grim.
But enough about the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Should I get to some alerts here?
Yeah, but if I can, real quick before we do.
Sure.
Because the one thing that wasn't grim was the NFC South, but also that was kind of grim.
That was extremely grim. Maybe the grimmest.
Like, I feel like the Saints had a good fight in there as they were figuring out the Bucs were just throwing screens. I'm kind of glad the Bucs won because I cannot imagine being the Falcons if you had seen the Saints win and then you let the fucking Panthers kick your ass in overtime to the tune of 44 points. Like, I got asked on Red Zone Radio, like, who's the team that's one of the worst teams right now who could turn around and, like, win the division next year? And I think I think I'm ready to buy in on the Panthers. I think I'm ready to buy in on Bryce Young, a complete turn.
Apparently not Ryan. I kind of buy it a little bit, only because the NFC South is kind of garbo. Even though, how many times have the Bucs won it in a row now? Like 6?
5, 6 times, I believe. But
tell me why you don't believe in the Panthers, Ryan.
Ownership.
Okay.
Fair.
One of my favorite stats in NFL history is that the Carolina Panthers won their division 2013, 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
They have never had back-to-back winning seasons in their franchise's history.
Oh, that's true. They won one of it. They were what, like 7, 8, and 1 or something.
Yeah, they're under 500. But all I'm saying is that the Bucs. I think I still believe in them ultimately. And then Michael Penix can make some throws. Like he's very fun to watch.
He's fun. That one throw to the corner,
it feels like if there was a miles per hour competition, he might win it. Just the velocity on some of those passes.
The zip insane. On those throws.
Yeah.
But it's the zip and it's the touch though. It's like the ball placement. Like he can do it all.
I don't know if it was the end of regulation or whatever, where he just threw 2 absolute dimes to Drake London in the corner of the end zone. The first one he didn't get in bounds, but the second one he did. I'm just like, I don't know if I've ever seen back-to-back passes like that. Just unreal.
But they've got to been kicking themselves so hard.
Their defense is ass.
They had such a they swept the fucking Bucs this year. And that's how your season peters out. And even if they had won this game, it wouldn't have mattered. And maybe you went to Penix way too effing late in the season.
Dude, but the Atlanta Falcons this year, they went to Penix so late. However, they beat the Bucs one time with Kirk Cousins throwing for 500 yards in overtime.
I don't get
So it's like
it is the weirdest season.
Like what an absolute just
and you've got to kill
disaster.
Yourself over how you lost that Commanders game.
Yeah, I mean Raheem Morris. I
don't.
I was there was one video that they showed of Raheem Morris that I was like, oh wow, this guy's got a little Dan Campbell in him in terms of leadership. I think he might figure some things out. Little game management issues early on. Some would say maybe Dan had some too early in his career, so maybe he clears those out. But I don't know. There's some real bad ones this year.
I do wonder about how far the Bucs can go with Todd Bowles as well as a head coach.
I just think Baker Mayfield's one of the top,
he is
3 quarterbacks in the NFC, 4.
That's kind of why I was a little disappointed the Rams ended up losing, because I think the Bucs would like, I'll be honest, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but like, I don't want to see the Bucs. I think the team I want to see the least next round is probably the Bucs. No, actually, they can't see the Bucs next round, I believe. They can't see the Bucs, and they have to see the Bucs in the NFC Championship.
That's correct. They can't see the 2 or 3 seeds because the lowest seed is going to be either the 4th, 5th, or 6th, or 7th. All right, let me get to some alerts here. Then maybe we jump in right after that.
We jump back in. I know you've got to be out at like 5:30 or so.
Not 5:35.
Oh, 5.
All right. Oh wow, I gotta scroll down here. Nish or Kanish, thank you for the 2 months subscribed to the channel. Appreciate you. Jer 17 months subscribed to the channel. California Lions 21 months subscribed to the channel. 15 bits from RGA says LFG go Loins. JC 15 months says Super Bowl favorite Detroit Lions. That is a factual statement. Guys named 12 months says Lions getting the 1 seed. Nope, not going to read the rest of that one because I can't. But thank you, guys named. 1,000 bits from Woodchuck Hunter says the Lions are now 2-0 when my son sleeps through the game. He was born on Christmas Day. Aw.
Hey, amazing. Congratulations.
Congrats. That's awesome. He's never seen the Lions lose. In fact,
never will.
Never will. I hope that's not a threat. Toast, thank you for the 12-month subscribe channel. Says Loins put the belt to ass. Yukon Lions 9 months. Says LFG. It's such an exciting time to be a Lions fan. You know that. Steel Lions 24 months says after this win, is it okay to be a little smug? Absolutely.
Do it, man.
I don't stun on them. Who cares?
I think the rest of I was talking to my friend Bo about this. You only really get 1 season to be the feel-good story, and then everyone starts treating you like just the big, bad, evil thing that needs to be thrown down. So, like Brad Holmes has on his shirt, be the villain.
Be the villain. Ain't no harm in it.
Be more obnoxious and more annoying than you've ever been before.
And then when people complain about it, give them the clip of, what's his name, that wrestler? The white-haired wrestler guy that I'm very tired. I can't think of anyone's name. Where he's just, I'm gonna be worse. I'm gonna be 2 times.
Yeah, that's
worse.
what I just. Yeah,
that
what
guy.
I just referenced. Yeah. That's Ric Flair.
Oh. Yeah, Ric Flair. That guy.
That guy.
Scott, thank you for the subscription over on YouTube. Uncle Indigo 50 months subscribed to the channel. So it's back for a minute. Hey, appreciate seeing you there, buddy. One of our OGs. Dano TV 28 months says 28 months, baby. Go Loins. I'm so glad you were able to come back this year. And after how it looks in the spring with the podcast, love you guys. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Woodchuck Hunter 100 bits throws a bunch of French in the chat. So I'm kind of afraid to say it out loud because I don't know what it is. But says AG must be a big fan of La Emperor. So, okay. I don't know. Pirate Dog 26 months says, yeah, boys and girls, we are all number 1. Let's go up from here. Love you guys. Love you, buddy. DJ, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Light Horse 27 months says, number 1 seed, baby. Kick Puncher 19 months in LFG. M Greasy, thank you for the follow. David Lunch 24 months says, Dubski's in the effing chat. Quoting the great Panay Sewell. And you know what? Let's see some Dubskis in the chat. Where are the Dubskis at? Mrs. Rovey, 47 months, says, happy tiny dog in a Starbucks drive-thru Monday. Referencing Dan Campbell's little teacup Yorkie, of course.
I love those dogs. I love that. I think I saw it. I don't use Instagram much, but I saw it. Started following Holly Campbell.
Yes, she's been excellent for that on Instagram.
Like it's, oh my
god. Nick the Greek 100 bits. Matt Patricia's Morose, jealous, wine drunk bosoms. Another 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, after Dan Campbell was hired, I was extremely cynical. I repeatedly referred to him as Royd Miranelli. I feel so ashamed.
That's great.
That is pretty great. And Nick the Greek, I don't know if you hung around for the rest of the Madison, but you came in and I think you resubscribed and you said highway to the Anzalone. You spelled it correctly. And I don't think you were trying to. but I just wanted you to know that you spelled it Anzalone, and I appreciate that because I don't like saying the other one.
It. Speaking of the Roy Marinelli thing, the old Joy Taylor clip about the racing helmet was making its rounds today.
I wonder who did that.
I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one.
No, I was saying I was very quick
you
to get on the trigger last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so dumb looking at it. It's so good. She even says at that point, like,
you guys,
Brian Flores would never. And then I reminded myself, oh, right, Brian Flores was a head coach. That's right.
By the way, I totally forgot that was one of our emotes, and I love that our chat is now filling up with the race car helmet. Austin Mammoth, thank you for the 28 months. Says, thanks for reading this, honey.
Sorry, one more thing on that. It's very funny to do this in a year where the only fucking... Sorry, I keep swearing when I know Rui's here. The only ad I keep seeing over and over is Andy Reid going, Bumble Rooski, Bundle Rooski.
I've been met with some of those replies and comments that Andy Reid should be the coach of the year. Why?
What'd he do?
Why does he need it? Is maybe the better question. Not that any coach needs it, but
or not that any award should ever be that way, right? Because it's almost like, well, why not vote for Lamar Jackson as MVP? Well, I mean, he already has a couple. What does he need it? Like, let's try to advance some other kind of agenda. It's not from that standpoint. It's from how many one-score, weird, gross, dumb, stupid football games did the Chiefs win this year?
Well, how much of that was because of his coaching? That's the part
where
I'm really struggling on.
A blocked field goal. Ooh, a defensive pass interference call against the Bengals that put you in field goal position. Like Isaiah Likely's toe being out of bounds the first week of the season. Like it's just week after week after week, and it's like, yeah, I get it. Wins are wins, right? And you can't be. I don't want to get, put to task, so to speak, with the teacup Yorkies and Dan Campbell when it comes to grading wins.
Right.
But the Lions wins were way better this year than the Chiefs wins.
I mean, listen, the point differential, I put in today's PODD, I think it was like 8th best all time.
No.
Like something crazy like that. And granted, they're playing one extra game, but did you also know that a 15-win season has only happened 8 other times? And again, I understand that they're playing one more game than most of these teams, but kind of the point I was making in PODD was like, the bar was so low here in Detroit, and it's already way higher than it's ever been. Like the status of this franchise, I think, has been changed forever because the best previous season was 12 wins. And that was last year.
And maybe it's something, this is maybe something I should save for the podcast, but like Amik Robertson talking about like how guys now like want to come to Detroit and like, how they welcomed him in. But more than that, I think it was a tweet from Dan Graziano that I saw last night. And let me just find it real quick because I want to read it. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Where he shits on
I've never
Gridiron Heroes too.
A little bit, but like I think in a good way. He's saying it's cringy in a good way. My point is that I've never heard I've heard people say, "Wow, this place is loud," but I've never heard like national guys doing this, where it's like the Ford Field experience is wild. One break, they introduce Calvin Johnson, the next Barry Sanders. They play an Eminem song and show Eminem in a suite, deafening reactions. They play Circle of Life and everyone holds their babies above their head. They have the cringiest post TD song in the league, which is really saying something. I'm sold. I don't see how anyone comes in here and wins here. It's that first part, right? Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, this idea of like, hey, look, we've had all these great players here. We have Eminem up here, leaning into what, like, rather than just being another team in the shadows, it's just, we've got a lot here. Like, look at this brotherhood we've had here. Look at all these great players that have come through here, and look at the hope of these people, and look at this crowd, this crowd power. They bumped Move Bitch at one point.
Oh man, did they? And
the roof came off.
And like the play started and the crowd finished the line, which was my favorite part. I don't remember which part of the song it was, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's the perfect line to still hit. And I was very proud of the crowd because Ludacris is awesome. But But like,
what happened to those 2000 Vikings tickets?
Right.
Where were those fans? I got taken to task on Fox Sports Radio. Oh, watch out. This is great. Look at the Vikings. They want to get in there. I didn't see a damn one of them.
I mean, to be fair, they had almost nothing to cheer for all game.
Yeah.
But I think credit to whoever like runs the events on the Lions side, because it felt like every time that maybe the energy was dropping, particularly in the first half, they're like, quick, like, roll the Calvin Johnson footage. Let's throw him out on the field. Let's get everyone hyped up. And then, like, I talked about this on PODD again. I think it was a 14-point game at this point. The Vikings are facing a critical 3rd and 10. They cut to Aiden Hutchinson on the sideline while they're huddled up. And that's the loudest the place got all night. Like blood-curdling, ear-bleedingly loud. Lions versus Rams loud in the playoffs. And what happens on that play? Sack that essentially ends the game. Like, Al-Qadim Muhammad gets to Sam Darnold, and the place... Yeah, it was very close to over 120 decibels. I'm very curious if they eclipsed it, but like they had, the decibel counter on the screen, which I'm never sure if that's official or if that's like, oh, you're like, oh, here's our fake little meter. Either way, like, that was the loudest it's gotten in that building in at least a calendar year. Like, it was incredible.
I've been seeing from a lot of people saying that, like, not just the in-game experience being equivalent to like what the first playoff game felt like last year, but like the lead up to the game, like pre-game, and then the game, and then like after the game. Like,
right.
There were a lot of people saying that like it was really reminiscent of the Rams game from last year.
I think it's also really smart. Again, kudos to the event. Like, they're opening the doors 3 hours before kickoff now.
Yeah.
And I think that really, like, lets the guys get a little lubricated before the game,
Moved up.
Make sure everyone's in there by kickoff. I like it. All right, 2 more alerts, and then I think we should jump into it unless you have anything more to say.
Jump back in, yeah. No, that's it.
Okay, 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, I am no longer an extremely online troll. I'm a 41-year-old man with a toddler son. I respect Jeremy's sense of decency and decorum. Of course, he would never say highway to the Anzalone, which is not what he wrote. MCDC Forever, 19 months subscribed to the channel, says, was very scared about picking my username, even though I could change it, but feeling much more confident in it now that we have back-to-back NFC North titles. It almost feels like Dan Campbell is here until he doesn't want to be here anymore already. And I know that sounds crazy to say 4 years into his thing.
It would have to take a very monumental collapse, but like here's the other part of it too, is like we're talking today about it's Black Monday. You want to talk about the ownership of Sheila Hamp.
Sure. And
the patience behind all of this, the ability to... I've always heard good things about Arthur Blank as an owner who clearly knows football, but also understands not to be in the way of what his guys do and to take a long-term patience with his team when they're clearly in need to build something. Hasn't worked out for Arthur Blank a little bit, and he's getting up in age, and you got to wonder if he's got every right to maybe be impatient to try to bring the Falcons to Super Bowl. But Sheila's very much so got like that right sweet spot of what you want an owner to be. And when this team was really, really floundering, and she gave the vote of confidence to Dan Campbell, and then was immediately rewarded for it by a win-loss record that never in our wildest dreams I think we would have seen out of the Detroit Lions.
I believe they're 35-10 since that media session.
Yeah,
it's wild. All right, 35-10. Could you imagine?
35-10.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
All right, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. They do have cheap concessions by design, yes. Pride of Detroit POD cast. We had a lot of fun with the Vikings game. A lot. and I know we were jumping all over one. Let's talk about this year, though, in full as we look ahead to the playoffs. We do have a bit of a week to rest and starting to preview the playoffs once we know who the Lions will play. But I've always said that be appreciative of what you have in this Lions team. You never know how long stuff lasts in the NFL. But as we were just talking about during the break, there was at one point Dan Campbell was on yet another losing streak in 2022. Sheila Hamp gave the vote of confidence, which a lot of people are very cynical about when it comes to owners, about how long you really have. And since that time, the Detroit Lions are 35-10. 35-10. You've only watched them lose twice this year in an extremely long drought and an extremely long gulf in between that, and it was two teams who I think everyone worries about in the playoffs, the Bills and the Buccaneers. You haven't seen the Lions lose back-to-back games in an even longer period of time. And that game last night was the capstone on a season that is going to go down in the history book as the best Detroit Lions season ever so far. And a lot of that gets the ancillary and the heightened bar of we need to see them do some stuff in the playoffs. And that's all very understandable. But we've learned a lot, Jeremy, about this Detroit Lions team in 17 games over 18 long damn weeks with a bye week that was, I don't even remember, week five. 6? Yeah, week 5. Unbelievable what they have been able to accomplish with the obstacles that have been put in their way seemingly every week since the Dallas Cowboys game when Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg. Every week there's been something else new, some other thing that they've had to deal with, to an injury, to manage on when they're going to get this player back, that player back. How can you replace, Ali McNeil? How can you replace Carlton Davis?
Yeah.
I just these challenges they have had to weather, and they've started to get some reinforcement here near the end of the season. But this has been, and I don't want to even talk about Coach of the Year because I don't understand that award. But in terms of every other metric I can think of for the regular season, this has been a dream season for the Detroit Lions fans. You've watched this team regularly drop 40 points on teams. You've watched them go 6-0 against the division. You watched them embarrass the Minnesota Vikings in the biggest game of the year. You've had that biggest game of the year. You've been on prime time, I don't know how many damn times, and pulled out a miracle against the Houston Texans, where I was at Drugstore Cowboy in Los Angeles with a bunch of other Angelino Detroit Lions fans going nuts, insane on a Jake Bates kick. You have a Jake Bates, by the way. You have a Jake Bates. You have this guy who's sexy and making long field goals. You've got Jared Goff. You've got Jared Goff's jersey in Canton because of a game he played this year. I know we have to see what they're going to do in the playoffs, but I don't know how you can hit this bar again. Yet the Lions will try.
Well, and here's the reason why they will. They have met every single expectation that has faced them from the beginning. We knew year 1 was going to be a rebuild. Year 2, we probably had higher expectations at the beginning of the year, but by the end of the year, we were all pretty damn satisfied with where they were at. And then they entered 2023 with, hey, you guys should probably win the division this year. It's not very good. What do? They go win the division, then take it another level and go all the way to the NFC Championship game. And now it was like, okay, the Lions have arrived. Let's see you do it again. Let's see you. You're Super Bowl guys now. That's
now you're the hunted.
Now
you're the hunted. Now you have expectations on your shoulders. What can you do with those expectations? How about the most wins in a season?
Right. Yeah, the most wins in franchise history. The tied with the best record in football. Let's not forget that because the Chiefs lost.
But I mean, technically, I think they're above them. They have a better record in conference. They went 6-0 in their division. There's no mistaking who the best team in football is.
Right. And so
that's how they answered the bell, Jeremy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Every single time the expectation for this team has risen, they have met that. And we are not used to that here. We are used to, one great year. Let's see you do it again. Nope, we can't. Sorry. We're the
Yeah,
Lions.
2014 haunts me a lot because I started covering the team in 2015, and what happened after the Jim, playing the Cowboys, it's suddenly, oh wow, everything's crashing out, and we're gonna fire the GM.
Right.
And you did it in a year too, where you had two incredible there were two other teams with 14 wins in the NFC, with the Eagles and the Vikings on your ass the entire season. The entire season. And we talked a lot in other podcasts about how this was making us insane, about how like the Vikings wouldn't drop anything, the Lions weren't getting help here, this, that, and the other thing. And you still took the 1 seed.
Right.
There were 40 wins combined among the top 3 teams in the NFC North.
It's insane. It's insane. You got a first place schedule. And then you deal with all these injuries, right? And then you hear Dan Campbell come out and say, like, we're, no pity on us. This is actually just a great opportunity from some other guys. You start getting pity from the national guys. Like, oh, my God, 12 guys on IR. Oh, my God, 30 guys on IR. And then
I don't know if they can keep doing this. I don't know if anyone can walk over the Lions defense. They're awful.
And Dan Campbell's out there saying, like, nah, we good. We got guys that we trust. We got guys in the building that we can go up there and try out, and we're going to be fine. And we love this. We love that Green Bay's on our ass. We love that the Vikings are on our ass because that's going to get us ready. That's going to keep us sharp. And he backs everything up. Everything he says ends up getting backed up. They win that big game Thursday night against Green Bay with a whole bunch of guys off the practice squad that have been there a week. They go out there and, they're dealing with some issues defensively. But as Dan Campbell says, we're going to win a game. However, we're going to win a game. We might give up 800 yards of offense. We don't care. We're going to win by 1. And they mostly did that. They did that in every game but the Bills. And they still were kind of close in that Bills game too. And then you get a couple of key pieces back. And now you're back to where you were before. You are a Super Bowl contender. Maybe the leading Super Bowl contender. And so, there's going to be more trials and tribulations along the way. You're probably going to lose a coordinator or two. You might have more of your front office poached. You might have to start paying some of these guys that are still on rookie deals, and that's going to make the salary cap a little bit more tight.
You're going to have some parts of the offensive line who are going to probably age out, and you're going to have to restock them here pretty soon.
Exactly. The engine under the hood. But what has this regime done to have any sort of wavering faith that they're not going to be able to do that with the next challenge that comes up?
The proof is in how it was built, though, right? Like that's essentially what you're saying. And the 2021 class was kind of it was the first to get rewarded, right? When you sign 2 guys to mega extensions like Sewell and St. Brown from the same draft class, but it happens in the offseason after arguably the best draft class with the 2023 class. And then, oh, wait, hold on a second. Jameson Williams, 1,000 yards receiving despite being suspended for a couple games. And he looks like the thing that turned this offense from being a very good, great offense to being a historic offense that scored 564 points. Like, come on, man. Like, now you're talking about that 22 class with Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams. And like, it's insanity. They're building it the right way.
And then even last year, and even this last draft, where I think, Jeremy, you had some legit concerns about, can you still keep drafting top guys when you're picking this late into a draft? And I thought Terry and Arnold turned it on pretty well near the end of the season. And as a corner, as a rookie corner, that's a tough bar to clear. Yeah. You got production out of Christian Mahogany this year in some limited snaps, but he might be your, they seem to always have
future offensive line pieces.
I think what we're doing is it's also it's like a Nietzschean will to power. It's like we're going to say we're going to do something, and then we do it.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing that there are very few teams in the NFL can say they have that ability to do that. And there's a lot of times where I think that has been met with derision in the past because we as sports fans, and especially maybe as Detroit sports fans especially, are cynical.
Yeah.
We're cynical about it. And we have a right to be cynical about it because we've seen a lot of other teams fail to do what the Lions have been able to do, where they say something and they go and do it.
It's rare. And I mean, there's a reason why coach speak is a term, right? Is because usually they're lying to you. Usually they're selling you of bill of goods that's not there. But part of the reason that makes Dan Campbell so effective is he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that with the media. He certainly doesn't do it with their players. And I think that gets the best out of both of them, right? You have a better relationship with the media if they can trust you. You have a better relationship with your players if what you say is actually what you go out and do. They respect that. They respect that sort of honesty. And it doesn't always have to be like the nice answer, right? Sometimes you're going to tell a player, hey, you didn't have a good week of practice. You're not going to start. They're still going to appreciate that honesty more than, not telling them or giving them some bunk excuse or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, it starts from the top down. It starts, as Ryan said, the very foundation of this team in the very first draft and continuing to do all that as you get, and not letting up, right? As you said, like the 2023 draft might be their best, which is insane considering how good the first one was.
And you mentioned like the honesty from Dan Campbell, and it's like also in failure too, where
right.
he's getting a reputation now. He's falling into that like trap with national media people where they're treating him like Ron Rivera or something and being like, oh, he's aggressive. It's Dan Gamble. He's out here reckless. But like we how many times have we said it? When there's a fourth down play that doesn't work, he gets up there and he's not doing what Eberflus did or something where they're like, oh, we liked what we saw from our offense at that moment. He says straight up, like, yeah, that's on me. That's on me. I probably shouldn't have done that in that situation. That's an earnesty and an honesty and a admission of weakness that is so, like, not just in football people, but in males in general, that is so effing rare. And I think you can't help but respect it at the end of the day.
The authenticity is everywhere, though, and that's been the one word that has become synonymous with Dan Campbell, because a game that stands out to me is Dallas last year.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell Dan Campbell was pissed. Nobody wanted to be in that room afterwards. Like Dave Burkett got a drop out of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
he got chewed out a little bit, and then Dan immediately apologized because he realized what was, I'm sorry, Dave, but like I'm pissed.
Yeah, I'm upset, Dave.
I'm upset, Dave.
Which again, though, like that just speaks to what you see is what you get, and even that 2022 class. Going back to it, Kirby Joseph's in that class too.
Yeah,
like
we didn't even mention Aleem throughout this too. Like
right.
Another guy with a mega extension.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I don't know, just like the overarching takeaway, and you're right, Chris, like nationally speaking, especially this year, this season, this era, it's all going to be defined by rings. It is. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's fair, maybe that's not fair. But the way things are looking, man, I don't think this is the Lions' only shot. I know things could change drastically with the coaching, the players, whatever. But I suddenly don't have this feeling. I really never did, but that, these injuries might be ruining the Lions' best shot. The division's getting good. Like, who cares? This team is still good.
Dude,
I don't care if the NFC North is the best division in football. The Lions are the best team in the division, and they have been for the last 2.5 years. And it hasn't really been particularly close.
Plenty of cope going around today, obviously. Like I'm seeing from plenty of Vikings fans that are like, ultimately it was the quarterback that lost us that game, and the Vikings drafted quarterback in the first round, so they'll be just fine. Where will the Lions be? It's like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll have another nine starters from defense on IR again next year.
Right. So wait, are they going to go to the mystery box and hope they get another Sam Darnold out of it? That's how many times that
JJ McCarthy's going to work out?
Hey,
an injury bug's not going to hit
significant
you guys
knee injuries
next year.
in his history,
but it's not like any other franchise in the division has done that before, right? Just assume that when you get rid of one Hall of Fame, all-pro level talent quarterback, you're going to replace him with another one.
Yeah, that was a lot of people really jumped on the Packers, and like, can we just say they were hard capped this year as far as like 0-5 against teams with better records than them, and then dropping that Bears game at the end in like horrible, uncharacteristic play from them. Like I know they, Jordan Love lost the game, but left the game with an injury. But I mean, if we listen to Ryan, it wasn't much of a step down to Malik Willis.
Hey, he was out there with backups fighting for his life.
By the way, I love your conquest of just crapping on Jordan Love any opportunity you get.
He needs to show me who everybody says he is.
Right.
The Packers win 11-5 and we're 1-5 in the division. When has that ever happened?
I don't know.
They'll probably do it again. They'll probably do it again next year with a third place.
Sorry, 11-6. 11-6, and you're 1-5 in the division.
You know who else was 1-5 in the division? Chicago Bears. Same Chicago Bears team, by my opinion.
The Chicago Bears, who had more losses than the rest of the division combined.
The Chicago Bears were 4-2. The Chicago Bears were 4-2.
If only they could play the Packers every week, they probably would have finished with a winning record.
But I think this is just ultimately where we're at, right? Like, because I know the next level's coming and it's already here, and we're going to be talking very hard, and we're going to talk about playoffs in about a few seconds. But like, just before we hit that next level, appreciate what this is and appreciate the certainty that the Detroit Lions organization has gone with through all of this. You don't see this in a lot of other football teams. You just don't. And I know it's hard at the top to stick around, and there's a lot of teams, but there are teams that do it. But even those teams, look at the Ravens and the Steelers, they do have some down years for them. They still find ways to get into the playoffs, and maybe they're unhappy with where they're at in the playoffs, but you've graduated to this level now where you can start thinking about playoffs more often than thinking about mock drafts in December.
Yeah, no question. I mean,
that's a transformation.
It is, and it started last year, but it's definitely continuing to ongoing. There's a reason why people are like, we should rebuild like the Detroit Lions did.
We need to find our own Dan Campbell to manage the organization. Dan Campbell, who everyone was clowning for about a good year once he got here as being the goofy guy like a Jim Tom Sula. And now they want a guy to manage a locker room like that. And
I think on Black Monday, it's always a smart thing to remember. And you already touched on it a little bit, like the patience and the vision it took to build what they have today. And that's something that Dan Campbell talked about in his post game in the locker room. Like this is a long time coming. This is 3 to 4 years of work, realizing that it's not going to happen overnight, realizing that you have to get the right kind of people in the building from top to bottom, realizing that it's not going to be a straight line of success. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be mountains to climb, but you're going to get there. And now the Lions are it's the fruits of success that they're enjoying now after 3.5 years of going through it. Both, there were obviously a lot of good times in the past year and a half or so, but like you take that punch in the NFC Championship last year and you use it to grow. You use it to what was the motto this year? Takes more.
Takes more, yeah.
Takes more.
3 more wins than last year already.
And maybe 3 more still to come. Ryan, and like the other challenge the Lions are going to have to face is like, look, right now, all the interviews are out for Ben Johnson, for Aaron Glenn, and they will have to restock those. And, we already have a blueprint of some team losing both coordinators in a single year, and that was the Eagles. But, top to bottom on this coaching staff, we've talked a lot about Kelvin Shepard. We've talked a lot about Tanner Engstrand. We talked a lot about Hank Fraley. Like and the coaching staff that Dan Campbell surrounds himself with. And I know we, during the break, loved using the word merchant, but I don't think in any world you can sit here and seriously say Dan Campbell is a coordinator merchant. He's more than that. He is the soul of this organization.
Yeah, I think that something that is even crazier that's about to happen with this Lions organization is that there's going to be a Dan Campbell tree.
Really? I like it.
But that's something that has never happened in this franchise's history as long as I can remember. There was no coaching tree that was planted here, right? And I guess
leave the Lions and their career is done.
Right. I mean, like how the stat so long was it was only like Dick Duran that like skirted it, right? Because of the interim status that he got. Like no head coach that had ever been fired from Detroit would go on to be a head coach anywhere else. So
Jim Schwartz got close like one time, but I think he's now stuck permanently as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah. So I think that we could be staring that down If the Lions lose someone like Ben or if they lose someone like Aaron Glenn, I trust that Antoine Randall is a guy that nobody really talks about enough. We're talking about Jameson Williams, 1,000-yard season. We're talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, another Pro Bowl.
He's a great leader, too.
Tim Patrick comes into the fold, and Tim Patrick's a guy. Khalif Raymond is, a super valuable player that thought at one point walking off a preseason game in the Meadowlands was like, oh, this is going to be my last football game. And now he's just like, an all-pro punt returner. There's the one other thing I need to say, though, is that Brad Holmes trading the franchise quarterback for a guy that he believed in, that I don't know if I still totally believe in Jared Goff. Like, there's still like part of me that thinks that like it's going to turn midnight and there's going to be a pumpkin and it's going to happen. But he is continuously proving me wrong time and time again. Brad Holmes made that shrewd decision to trade the greatest quarterback that this franchise has ever had for a cast-off and 2 other draft picks that sent this thing to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the greatest trades in NFL history.
And that's also something, too, I keep thinking about, is the guys who are here. We talked about with Anzalone, right? Like, about I was trying to do everything. And now this is a culture that's going to get handed down by these players to other players as they come in. And you've created this coda. You've created this codec of, like, how things are done in Detroit, where you've got St. Brown and Jameson Williams playing at this remarkable, like, balletic flow on a hook and ladder. You've got this example of this is what Lions football is, and this is how we do things in Detroit. Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. What do they need to go to where they want to go from here? We got a week off. We don't have to worry about the playoffs. We can all kick back and watch 3 nights of wild card football.
Which is awesome. Like, we're very used to watching wild card football, just sitting on our couch and relaxing.
We are.
We are not very used to doing that because we're just waiting to see who the Lions are going to play in the second round.
Researching, so to speak.
I mean, the answer is as simple as play like you did in the second half against the Vikings. There's not a team in the NFL that's going to beat you if you can play like that for 4 quarters. And I don't see a defense remaining in the playoffs, maybe short of the Eagles, that can give the Lions the kind of problems that the Vikings were able to give the Lions last night. And even then, they were only able to do it for a half. Because that's it. Like, the Vikings have maybe the best defense in football, and the Lions have hung 30 on them 4 straight times. So you're not only going to have, like, the only teams that are going to give them trouble this year is someone that can hold them to just about 30 points, but then also beat them in a race, in a shootout. So it's a team that's going to have to be able to play in a shootout and have a kind of good defense, because if you don't, the Lions are going to hang 40 on you and you're going to lose 42-28.
I feel like the only team that meets that criteria is, it's not even the Eagles. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And
I don't believe it.
This is not the same Lions team that the Bucs beat back in September.
It's not the same Bucs team either.
It's not the same. I mean, they're getting Antoine Winfield Jr. back, which was a big part of my calculations. I think they had some other player leaving because of some just really terrible life incidents.
Right?
But like
Jordan Whitehead.
Whitehead. But like, look, this is a Bucs team that's been through a lot right now. Mike Evans just tied Jerry Rice's 1,000-yard season record, Ryan, which is like, I think we have to keep remembering that Mike Evans is that kind of receiver.
Yeah, he's the Frank Gore of wide receivers.
But, I mean, that's a quarterback that is resistant to the blitz in Baker Mayfield. That's a team with a very good, a lot of good defensive pieces between Kalijah Cansey, Vita Vea, and Antoine Winfield Jr. That's a team that's set up for you, but like much like the Eagles, there's a chance that you don't even see them in the NFC Championship because you can't play them next round. So like there's a lot to develop. You either get to see Rams, Vikings, Commanders, or Packers in the divisional round.
So I want to give credit to one of my buddies that I was talking to during the Pistons game, because he shared some information with me that I can't remember where exactly he was citing it from, but it was this really good point that he shared with me, that the thing that's really unique about this Lions team is that, even think about the Bills game, right? It was wire to wire shootout. The Lions got so far behind that they couldn't come back. The only time that the Lions started to come back in that game is when the Bills tried to kind of slow the game down and start running the football. And then that gave a chance for the Lions to get back into the game, because the two things that Dan Campbell came in here to lay the foundation with this football team was run the football and stop the run. I trust that the Lions can stop the run. I mean, it was a huge blow to lose Lee McNeil. That almost sunk my entire season. Lee McNeil and Carlton Davis, and I was like, guys, how many defensive injuries can they weather? But getting Anzalone back, and if this team can stop the run, they can stay almost in any game they want to stay in. And they did it last night, even with losing the turnover battle, which was something I thought that they couldn't do from there on out. I was like, you can't lose a turnover battle, and you absolutely cannot get beat in the red zone. And they totally, I mean, they flipped it all the freaking time. Like, the Vikings were playing such complimentary football in that first half, where it was like defensive stop, good play on special teams. The Vikings are back in, they flipped the field again. They flipped the field again. The Vikings have flipped the field again. And the Lions defense stood up to the test, because the Vikings they didn't really seem that interested in running the football last night. And I mean, they did what they did to Sam Darnold, but the big point is, even the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have Saquon Barkley, like, I trust that Aaron Glenn he'll put something together that'll make the game who can score more points. And if you want to try to run the game and drag out the game, great. You take a possession, we'll take a possession, and we'll go score two. That's the complementary football that I feel like they can play throughout the playoffs, that makes them such a dangerous football team, that you can't rest on being conservative. You can't run the football against them, because A, that's where they can stop you, and B, you don't want to slow the game down to give them more opportunities to get the ball and score themselves.
The only thing I'll poke in that hole is that if you do run into a team that can run the football on you, that's the kind that actually I think is going to give the Lions trouble, because that's what happened in the Bills game, right? They were able to run the ball successfully and then work play action off that, and then you're in trouble. And the Lions' run defense has been a little bit up and down since losing Lee McNeil. Even last night, you give up a big run. Aaron Jones was mildly efficient, but in general, you held them enough as you needed to do. The Eagles, to me, are a team that might be able to run the football on the Detroit Lions, and if they can do that, then I think that opens the game for them in ways that I don't think a lot of other teams can.
There is one more X factor, and it's the biggest one they won this time, where it's like coming into Ford Field. That's really tough for any team now.
I thought you were going to say this, by the way.
Also that Amon-Ra now, St. Brown now has blue hair. Yes. He now has blue hair.
Is that not the X factor that you were talking about?
That's another X factor. We can keep stacking more X factors up here. Like, look, you should feel hopeful for what comes. And even for these teams we're talking about, like the Bucs and the Eagles, like, they still have to come to Detroit and play this team after playing for the case of the Bucs and the Eagles, 2 more games. And like, for a team like, say, the Vikings, they haven't had a bye week since the Lions almost did. Their bye week, I believe, was week 6. They're on long ass football as well. Am I wrong about their bye week? You're kind of giving me that look that I'm just like,
me? No, it's 5:00. I gotta go.
Oh, okay.
That's the look I'm giving out.
Okay. Well, that was my final point anyway. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. Final thoughts real quick before Jeremy has to skedaddle.
Super Bowl favorites. That's it. That's the tweet.
I've never been able to watch football like I'll be able to watch this weekend. It's gonna be interesting. Can't wait.
Dan Campbell, another victory for the OG. We have a little bit of time to wait here. I don't know what we'll do for this week while we are just sitting around. Maybe some football conversations, probably a mailbag.
Yep.
We'll see. Who knows? Either way, I think we're going to enjoy a little bit of a bye week along with the Detroit Lions. And we'll see you next time to preview this playoff game. So until then, this has been the Pride Detroit POD cast for myself, for Jeremy Reisman, who's kicking up his feet right now on stream, for Ryan Matthews. We will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
There you go.
All right, I'm going to run through the alerts really quick, and then I'm kind of going to have to abruptly end the stream, but love you guys. Where were we? Erwin, thank you for the 39 months. Says, love you guys. Couldn't be here earlier, but we'll check out the VOD later. Number 1 seed LFG. A couple follows from Nerve, Europe, Diva. Woodchuck under 100 bits says, can we read Anzalone's letter to Detroit from last year? Remind me to do that during mailbag. Mathis, thank you for the 26 months. Says, holy frack, just watched the game after work. And Dan Pask, 42 months, says, 42, it's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Go Lions. Love you guys. Throws a pride of a line in the chat. Appreciate you guys. We will be back for a midweek mailbag this week at some point. I have not figured out when that's going to be, but obviously the Lions have a lot of days off this week, so we're also going to be home a lot. So just kind of stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed everywhere. You get alerts, and we'll